Hey, welcome back to Tiny Garage Fabrication. In today's episode, we're still working on the 1972 Datsun 620 pickup. We're going to dry fit all of the 720 suspension components. Now that I've got the upper towers welded in place, we'll test the drop spindles, see how they are, possibly put this thing on a ground, and see how much suspension travel there is, see if all that work that I put in was worth anything. Let's turn to. Starting our work today with the lower control arms. I tried to get the lower control arm bushings out of this factory crossmember because the 720 requires a slightly longer bushing. However, I tried and I could not get them to move. So the tools that I had weren't working. So I decided to get some spacers. Now these AOB is the lettering on them from Home Depot. They fit perfectly over the lower control arm bolts, so go ahead and use 2 of those per side, and it makes up the space between the 620 and the 720 widths. Let's go ahead and get that mounted up. Jam the torsion bar in here real quick, not putting it all together, just mocking it up, just jamming it in there, putting an end on it, running a bolt through it. Easy day. The upper control arm, I realized it doesn't fit either. It is hitting the inner fender, so I tried to smooth it out with some pliers. Still didn't work. Realized I'm going to have to cut this thing because the control arm pivot bolt is hard into the sheet metal. And I found out a little bit later that the rear is also catching when the suspension flexes, so a little bit of cutting will be done there too as well. This still needs to be trimmed a little bit more, but I'll do that off camera, no big deal. Fitting everything up, I'm going to go ahead and install some new ball joints. I've got fresh uppers and lowers. They're all Delphi and AC Delco branded. Pretty decent stuff, should work pretty well to hang the new Beltec spindles that I got. Shiny new spindles. I'm gonna go ahead and just jam the hub on here. Now you notice the bearings aren't greased or anything. This is just for a quick mock-up. These bearings are coming out anyway. I've got brand new bearings going in. So let's give the tire a test fit so that when I eventually get this thing on the ground, I'm gonna be able to adjust the suspension and see how much travel there is. So now we just do the same thing on the other side. And once again, I'm gonna have to cut this. Now be careful, don't be like me. This was a near miss. I somehow did not cut my hand wide open, but you can tell I'm just wearing sunglasses, no gloves. I'm not in my normal protective equipment. Just don't cut corners, people. I nearly had to go to the emergency room. And just like the other side, just jam on the spindle. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a hub, throw some bearings on there, put this thing together, put a wheel on, and move on to the next step. The next step being this front cross member. The forward mounting points for the torsion rods are drastically different between the 620 and the 720. So I decided instead of trying to cut the mounts off, I'm just going to cut the whole cross member out and replace it. So I cut this front cross member off of the 720 frame that I had in last episode, and now I need to do some delicate surgery. I need to cut the old frame pieces off of the cross member without destroying the cross member. Next up is to cut out the 620 crossmember. Now this is like the previous version, but different, because now I have to make sure that I don't destroy the frame pieces, and instead I have to cut on the crossmember itself. But since I did it once already, this came out pretty good, and this little cordless Dremel is a lifesaver. Love that tool. Link in the description. Alright, gotta grind these welds out real quick. Perfect. Now when I cut the old crossmember out, the frame itself actually widened a little bit, so it was under some tension with that old one in, and as soon as I got all the welds cut out, it kind of popped open on me. So go ahead and measure everything, get it back to where it was, and also make sure that this crossmember is dead centered, and we'll go ahead and get it welded in. Now that I've got the tension rods in place, I did have to move them in just a little bit. I drilled out the forwardmost hole just a little bit so it would have a little bit of swing left and right, and it fit perfectly. Just after I got this thing set on the ground, I saw a little spider, an all white little, I don't know, maybe it was an albino spider, don't know. Anyway, I wanted to make sure it lived a good life, so I got that little guy out of there. Wouldn't get in my hands, but there it is on the cardboard. Took him outside, eat all the bugs he wants. Now I have suspension travel. You can see right here I've got some clearance. I got 2.5 fingers with a low profile bump stop. I'll have plenty of travel, and as it sits right now, the tire is actually in the fender, so that's as far as I can go. Alright, thanks for sticking around. I feel that was a pretty good weekend. I got a whole lot of work done. The first day had a lot of frustration trying to get those lower control arm bushings out of the frame, and I kind of copped out and put spacers in there. However, I've got something in my mind that I may try. I need to pretty heavily modify a commercially available tool in order to get it done, but I'm going to try that, and if I'm successful, then it will definitely make it in an upcoming video. Down in the description are links to some of the products that I use on this channel and in this episode. Please check those out. So this is where I need to ask for your help. Please hit that subscribe button, nearly to the goal of 1,000 subscribers. We're putting in a lot of work here at the Tiny Garage, and I really want to make this a successful channel, and that very first milestone is definitely the way for us to get there. So help us out, let's grow this channel, let's grow this community, and keep on doing cool stuff in tiny places. Alright, well that's it for today. Thanks everybody.